R24, driving business.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome yet again to the Fidelis Leadership Institute. We are live on Smart 24 and on X Spaces every Thursday, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. and maybe longer, depending on how hot the conversations are or how fat the conversation is. My name is Nanza, hosting lovely guests as you're going to get to meet them, discussing a very pertinent topic. Those who haven't seen the flyers and the information on our socials, today we are going to talk about a conversation that matters, a conversation that needs to be heard. Even though there is a myth around it that it is our women problem, we are hoping that by the end of the show we will demystify hormonal imbalance as a humanity issue, not just a gender-specific issue. And our goal is to empower us to navigate the topic of hormonal imbalance, especially in the workplace where there's very little said about it, yet the side effects of hormonal imbalance seem to permeate the very core of our workplaces and work cultures. And the side effects of trauma, the very side effects of trauma and stigma that arises from hormonal imbalance is the reason why this very tameable monster is thriving amongst us. I do not claim to be an expert, and that is why we called the two guests that are going to be speaking with us for the next while in the studio. So to our listeners and viewers, get comfortable, take a seat, invite a friend, get a drink, and let's have a conversation that matters around hormonal imbalance. So to start off the show, I would like to introduce our guests in order not to do injustice to their very deep and profound profiles. I would like to just say them by name, and then they will tell us about themselves before we dive into this very important conversation. On my immediate left is Dr. Chiza Blair. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm called, pitched a bit about the introduction. I go by the name Dr. Chiza Blair. I'm a medical doctor by profession. I'm also an expert in sexual reproductive health and rights. I also work as a founder and executive director of an organization called Usawa Health Initiative Uganda. I also work with another organization called World Vasectomy Day. So I'm very happy to be here to contribute to this immense topic we have on our table today. Thank you so much.
Welcome, Dr. Chiza. Dr. Chiza Blair.
Chiza Blair.
And highlight in your introduction is World Vasectomy.
World Vasectomy Day.
And that's an organization, not a day in the year that is
Not
celebrated.
No.
Welcome.
Thank you so
Can't
much.
wait to hear more of what you do in that organization. On my extreme right is Angela. Angela Nsimbi, who needs no introduction, but she will tell us more about herself, and then we'll dive into the conversation.
Good afternoon. This is East African time. So for those who are watching from other parts of the world, good morning or good evening. Okay, I'm Angela Nsimbi, like she said. I'm a mental health activist. I'm very passionate about mental health because I have a lived experience of a bipolar affective disorder. And I'm also an author. I've written a book about my recovery journey. I'm a mother. I love people to remember that. I'm a mother to 5 children, and 2 of them are already adults, 2 are teenagers, but the last will soon be a teenager. And also a co-founder of an organization called My Story Initiative. We are big on empowering people with psychosocial disabilities. I'm also a founder of a mental health program called Heart to Heart Chat Mental Health Program, which is under an organization which I founded called Nantamba Wellness Support, and also the initiator, in summary, the initiator of the Ketura Mental Health Awards, which is the first of its kind in Uganda. This year, we shall celebrate the 3rd edition. So, in summary, that's who I am.
Wow. Thank you so much, Angela. That's a plethora of profiles, like it's a profile underneath a profile underneath a profile, but it all results in one thing, that you're an authority and a willing advocate in the space of mental health. So we believe that we will glean and learn from that depth of knowledge as we try to understand. Angela's book is called Breaking Free. It is as simple as that. And maybe to kickstart this conversation, why the title, Breaking Free?
Why the title? When you have had a mental health crisis, everything in your life is under siege, if I should put it that way. So if it is your family life, it is under siege. If it is your economic empowerment, it's like everything in your life comes to a standstill. So because the book is about my recovery and what I used to recover, I call it Breaking Free because it's the chains. It's like a bondage. Everything is being broken so that I'm able to live independently, purposefully, and impactful.
Thank you. We talked about everything being broken, but because we are at the start of this conversation, and the first thing we say, there are lots of myths surrounding it,
Sure.
We are going to go back to first principles so that our audience can get a good appreciation of the subject matter. We will start with the doctor, scientific, and all the general things that we know from a science perspective. And then we'll later join in the real life experience of Angela so that we have a good balance on authority, on what it is and what is not. But also we have already gone straight into mental health. Yet the topic was very clear. It's just hormonal imbalance. Someone out there who came in to hear hormonal imbalance must be wondering if they're on the right show or not. So I would like to ask Blair, Dr. Blair Chiza, to help us from first principles to make the connection between hormones and then we will go to the other part of the discussion.
Thank you so much. Well, to kickstart with the conversation, I would like to put it out here. I'm going to try and simplify the medical language to try and fit in the context of a layman, someone who never went to medical school. So sit tight. I hope we're going to follow together and make these tiny things make sense to us. Now, to define what a hormone is, because it's very important, because everyone can been hearing hormonal imbalance. I have a hormone, there is a hormonal fluctuation, my hormones are disturbing me, and we assume it's obvious to everyone. So hormones are substances that are released in our bodies to impact change in certain areas of our body. For example, we have a very important hormone that is released by an organ in our body called the pancreas. That hormone is called insulin. It's just a chemical that whenever you eat something that has sugar in it, it's supposed to come in play to make sure the sugar level doesn't go haywire. So it kind of way puts in motion cascade of events that are going to ensure that the blood sugar doesn't really go high. Now, if that hormone is absent or if it's too little in the body, that's when we say someone has diabetes. So that's an example of a chemical. Now, for this particular discussion that we're on, we are looking at hormones that affect more of our sexual, mental, and reproductive health. So the set of hormones we're going to look at are falling in those three classical divisions that I've put: the sexual, the mental, and the reproductive health. Now, it's not only females that have these hormones, even males have the hormones too. But the difference is, in contrast with men, our hormones are a bit stable. The hormones that control the sexual reproductive health functions. They don't change in a day, or they don't change as the month goes on. Our hormones are stable compared to how women are. Women's hormones change and they impact change in our body because they experience what we call a menstrual cycle. And you'll see that as women tend to hit menopause, they'll have a bit of hard time in the first few years, but then later on, they will stabilize and they will not have these fluctuations happening in their bodies because they're no longer menstruating. But as long as you're still menstruating, you'll keep having fluctuations of hormones in your body. You may not be aware, but you will have changes on your body that you can't explain. Now, for example, the important hormones that we are looking at is estrogen, progesterone. We are looking at follicle-stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone. Basically, those four are the most important
on the
in this picture.
side of things.
Yes.
But you talked about two other categories. Mental and
they have impact on the features that we see. Now, what happens is, as the lady is starting to menstruate, some of those hormones are on the higher end, whereas the others on the lower end. But as the cycle goes on, it kind of flips. The ones that were on the lower end become higher, the ones that were on the higher end become lower. And wherever you get such changes, there is something that happens to our physiology and our phenotype and what we see on the outside. That's why you see that most women, when they're tending towards their menstruation, they tend to get pimples. They usually get pimples because there is a very important hormone that is deficient, especially estrogen and progesterone. Each time they go on the lower end, it supports the outbreak of acne, the pimples that we see. So there is science to it. That's why if a lady tends to get a very terrible outbreak when they're tending towards their periods, if we give them a tablet that contains estrogen and progesterone, they won't get the outbreak that we see. The same thing. Estrogen is more of a feminine hormone. It controls how females behave, how they look. Each time estrogen drops in level, certain things change. Your libido changes. So the interest in sex really falls down. Each time estrogen level goes high, the interest in sex goes up.
Is it a fair thing to say to people who are listening that that's a thermostat? Is it a thermometer or thermostat? Or the thermometer is what we see as the outside. If we were to use those, then a thermostat is what goes. Yeah. If you're high, it goes low. If it's low, it goes high.
Yeah. So a thermostat is more of a regulator that it wants to maintain a certain level. It wants to maintain things at a certain level. If things go high, it has to institute changes to bring it back to level. If things go low, it has to put a cascade of events in motion to ensure that things go back to normal.
So it's more of a regulator. When we talk about imbalance, we're talking about that whole process of going out of order.
Yeah. Now, if I'm to clear the air, there is a difference between fluctuation and imbalance.
Okay.
Now, the state that we say that a lady is having hormonal imbalance, it's already a disorder. It means there are certain things that have gone a bit way out of the normal. Like we expect certain changes to occur, but now the changes have gone a bit beyond. Like if we expect this hormone to go lower to this level and then recover over time, because I say they change, then they come back to normal.
Under normal circumstances.
Now, if we have a hormone going lower and it stays lower, never coming back, it takes way too long to come up, that's when we say there is an imbalance.
Not when because they're perpetually out of balance.
Yeah. There is a certain fluctuation we expect.
That is.
There's something normal we expect.
Okay.
That as a lady, if you're menstruating, we expect this hormone to be either on the lower end or on the lower end. Or if you're ovulating, we expect this hormone to be on the higher end and this one to be on the lower end. So if it reaches a time and for you, the changes are a bit persistent, this hormone falls on the lower end and it's maintained for even more than a month.
That's an imbalance.
That's when we say there is an imbalance.
Thank you, Dr. Chiza. And we appreciate that insight. We are talking to Dr. Chiza Blair and Angela on the issue of hormonal imbalance. This is FAT Talks, courtesy of Fidelis Leadership Institute. We come to you every Thursday, live on Smart 24 and on our X Spaces. And we are talking about the conversations that matter in society. And we just want to remind you that beyond these conversations, we do have regular fellowship program that is still running. Our fellowship program is still running. The cohort started about a fortnight ago, but those who are interested in learning, not about hormonal imbalance only, but a life that is balanced in all aspects. We've had several people come here and they've talked about issues from finances to personal branding, to image building, to skills, to finding your passion, to purpose, to understanding your personality type, to public speaking skills. We just want to have a holistic approach towards life. And we at Fidelis Leadership Institute do exactly that through our fellowship program. It's still ongoing. Please look at our pages. Excuse me. For those who are interested in coming to learn and share safe space with thought leaders on many topics, especially ethical leadership, among others, please hit our pages and somebody will be ready to talk to you and take you through so that you can join this cohort. It's a 16-week program, but it is broken down to flexible hours, both online and virtual. And I think you should join it. If you have any questions, kindly reach out on our socials. Thank you, Dr. Blair. I'd like to take this time to Angela. He has given us the chemistry and the biology and the lingua. And the audience out there listening and watching is wondering if they missed their biology class, they're probably switched off. If they attended their biology class, they're having bad memories of the biology teacher. So Angela, what has been your experience with these hormones as broken down? You said sexual, mental, and what? There were three categories.
Reproduction.
Sexual and reproduction are different?
Yeah. There's a very big distinction between sexual.
Just like doctors are really meant to confuse us. So reproduction and sexual are different.
Yeah.
Then he says hormonal imbalance and fluctuation are also different. Yeah. Angela, in lay terms, what has been your experience?
Before she chips in.
Sure, doctor.
There is something important. Did you know that humans are the only species in the entire world that have sex for fun? Other creatures, they only go for sex for reproduction. That's why for us, we have a very big distinction between sexual and reproduction, because unlike other species, for us, we can have sex for fun, sex for pleasure.
Is that a hormonal thing?
I kind of feel like it's kind of like a separate entity from reproduction.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Maybe we will make time outside the talk show to hear more about that very interesting statistic. Mm-hmm. So, Angela, what has been your experience with hormones? Wherever you're comfortable, because...
Now, okay, my experience. What I can say, because now I also mention one of those which I know, it's the endorphins, because these are the feel-good hormones. They make you feel good, and the way you get them to be released is when you engage in stuff like exercise, things that you love doing.
Do people love exercise?
Personally, the exercise I enjoy is walking.
Okay.
Yeah, walking. I will not lie. I tried aerobics when I was younger. No, Zumba I tried a bit, but I'm more comfortable with the walking. Walking is my thing. So when I talk about the endorphins, I'm giving an experience from my point of view. And because I went through a season when I also didn't understand what was happening to me. My season of being low, as in depressed, took a little longer, like more than 2 weeks than normal. So when it took a little longer, I wasn't interested in doing things I loved doing. And that affected my productivity. And I didn't want to socialize. So I isolated. I was more comfortable with my familiar space, which was the four walls of my home. And later, of course, when I began to understand myself more, but especially after the diagnosis, because when the doctor diagnosed me and then told me what it was, and I remember it took 2 years before he explained what the issues are, but he told me when you are low, you are depressed for longer than what is normal, 2 weeks and beyond. And when you are high, you become disruptive. And so when you become disruptive, those around you are affected. That is mania. When you're being manic, the excitement is a bit above what is considered normal.
Sorry to interrupt you, Angela. I think we started the story halfway. You're already into the 2-year diagnosis.
Yes.
And I don't know if all the listeners and viewers are very familiar with your story. So maybe we should honor you with about 5 minutes to give us a background and to also let us know if at that point you knew or you were clinically diagnosed. What we want to do is to furnish our audience with reliable information. We have a doctor on authority to dispel any myths because it's been said and it's common for people to self-diagnose or to carry even a childhood label and assume that is a diagnosis because everybody says either they've seen it happen a lot, they assume they are predisposed, so they are. And
I tell you something funny is a lot of these days, young people, they're overly using the word depressed.
Exactly. That's why we need to use this show to give accurate, certifiable information so that we spread the right information. It's not a small joke to joke around mental health. So Angela, if you would,
maybe to give a brief background,
please give us a background
for those who have never heard my story. It's one of those days I woke up and I was speaking rapidly. Scientifically, that's what they call it, non-stop, speaking rapidly. But it was an accumulation of stress from different areas of my life, personal and work related. But really, I can't blame also too much of work because I had flexi hours.
Do you have any? Do you mind sharing at what age, what life season you were in?
I was in my 30s.
Working, young worker.
Yes, and I was working.
A young worker.
Yes, working as a journalist. So I was in my 30s. I had just had my last girl. That I have 4 daughters. So I just had my last baby. At the time, my daughter was 9 months. So when I got the diagnosis, I remember the doctor did not tell me what it was. I was just being given medication and I just suspected whatever they are treating seems to be top secret because everyone around me seemed uncomfortable, like they are walking around eggshells, but no one is really telling you that why. Because obviously when I had an episode at home, it was not pretty because talking rapidly, that meant my husband had to take the children away from home, but I had to remain with one of them, the young one, because I was still breastfeeding. And so fast forward, I remember it took 2 years of treatment when I was on medication. And I remember asking the doctor, because up until that point in time, he hadn't told me what he's treating. I just suspected that it had something to do with my mind. And so I asked him, what are you treating? And that's when he gave me that simple illustration of using a valley on a picture and a hill to describe the depressive episodes and to describe the manic episodes. And so when I talked about the endorphins, I was talking about what makes you feel good, because you need to learn what triggers you so that you are able to take care of yourself better. And so I gave the exercise as an example. Do what you love, but exercise was one of those things which will also help you to release that endorphin, that make the feel good hormone. That is in my simple science way.
So you think your depression, if we were to equate it to Blair's earlier discussion, you had low or an imbalance or fluctuation. First of all, thank you, Angela, for the vulnerability. Why is the conversation around mental health and hormones secretive? We have a classic case of Angela where she was taking meds for 2 years and they were not even telling her that she had a disease. Why can't we talk about it like headache, malaria, cholera, Ebola?
Okay. So just to make it very much clear to be understood, there's a difference between hormones and neurotransmitters.
Okay.
That's another big technical word. We just hit on the floor. But if you look at your brain, there's certain substances that are meant to make certain things work. Now, in the picture of mental health, those substances are divided into two, in this sense. The substances that make you feel excited, they excite your brain, they make you feel good. And then there are substances that basically make it a bit dull, the brain. Now, for people who tend to get depression, several studies have been done and they have revealed that these substances that are meant to excite the brain, that are meant to excite you and make you feel good, they have been reduced to a lower level. That's why even the treatment that we give for someone who has depression is basically to only make the substances that excite the brain to just increase on the higher level.
My issue is on the disclosure. Why doesn't that conversation happen?
Now,
the way you do a lab test and they say you have malaria plus, why is the conversation around mental health so secretive?
So now the problem is there's a lot of stigma around mental health. We have to agree to that. Each time you try to help patients or relatives make sense of the diagnosis you found in a client, they always say no. They get second opinion, third opinion, fourth opinion, fifth opinion.
The patients themselves. Patients
and relatives. They go to pastors. That's why most of the churches are filled with people with mental health illnesses. They go to witch doctors, pray them, see what, they come up with stories because they're trying to look for an explanation. The problem with mental health is even doctors can't give you a cause why you're having a mental health.
Oh, illness. And people always ask why.
Yes, you see, when you have malaria and I do a lab test, I'll tell you that we found parasites in your blood.
Then you say, I didn't sleep in my mosquito net, I was at Alumbe, and then you quickly find a reason. Yeah, the reason. We want to understand why.
Now, with mental health, it just hits you. And then they tell you your child has maybe schizophrenia, maybe your child has bipolar, for the case of Angela. And then the entire time, even if you try to labor to explain to the relative and the client of what exactly is going on, they would persistently ask you that, why is it happening? Why is it happening? Why my child? Why there is no sign.
So there is no safe space for both the doctors and the patients.
Exactly.
We will get to that in a bit, but I want to go back to Angela. Angela, were you ready to hear or have that conversation? Because unlike those who are born where you take your child and the parents indeed die, you are an adult of sound mind. Yeah. Were you ready, if you could go back to that time, were you ready and willing to hear and have that conversation with your medical provider?
What I can say is that for the first week, I don't think I would have internalized it in the first week of treatment. However, after that week, I was very alert. I could have handled it.
So would you have preferred to be told, or you would be more adherent, not having that fear of losing it?
I would have preferred to be told, because that way I'm equipped on how to live better and more healthy. Yeah.
So given the choice, you would have preferred?
I would have preferred to be told earlier.
Okay. Thank you so much, Angela, for that vulnerability. It's a delicate space to walk, and we applaud your courage and bravery. But to our listeners out there, if anyone has someone who is going through a similar issue, or you even suspect, what we are doing in this show is just to open your mind to the realities and the possibilities. We are barely scratching the surface of the facts. Angela has talked about a lot of organizations and work she does around mental health and all the issues we seem to be touching on. Dr. Chiza has the same. We will try to upload all their information on our pages. We will tag on their pages for those who are following them, so that we have this conversation continue beyond the walls of this social media. And because of the stigma, as Dr. Chiza has said, maybe someone might want to reach out privately.
Yeah.
Let's have the conversation, because like Angela said, had she had the option at the time of diagnosis, she would have preferred to have this conversation with a Medicare provider. Yeah. Time is never enough, and because we have committed to discussing just one segment of hormonal imbalance, to kind of bring it up and bring all these issues of stigma, of family, of faith, of African traditional beliefs, we are going to try and use a case study to get into a lab, which is the workplace. Yeah. It's a Women's Month, yes, and even when we got this topic, we took a risk and a danger that people will understand. Women's Month, hormonal imbalance, it must be menstrual. It must be only menstrual. And that is why at Fidelis we say, because we disseminate accurate info, we brought in a male, first of all, and then a male doctor, but also try to shine the light on beyond the, she's moody because she's in her peds.
Yeah.
She's not talking. So when you go to the workplace, Angela, you started by hinting, even in your book, that you had some stressors among many, but there was a workplace issue. Which is the egg that laid the hen, the hen that laid the egg, in your opinion? Did work stress you so much that it caused a hormonal imbalance? Or did the hormonal imbalance affect you so much that work became stressful, in your experience?
I think in my experience at the time, I got bored with work. It became routine. It became routine that I could do some of the work even when my eyes are closed. I stopped feeling challenged. And so because of what everything else that I was dealing with at that point in time in my personal life, everything just came crashing down. Like my system just couldn't handle it. It came crashing down. However, what I want to give credit for my workspace is that I was able to work from home at the time, because when you're a journalist, there's a way your work can be a little flexible, still send the work, but still I was not as engaged as I would have loved to be, because frankly, at that point in time, I couldn't. Because I remember I actually took 7 months of work. I just couldn't. I needed to reboot.
So it wasn't a case of burnout, it was a case of boredom.
Yeah, I didn't feel.
So should we fear, Dr. Chiza, help us here, that every time we are bored, because we're in a generation that easily gets bored, should we fear that every time we don't have excitement, because life happens, should we fear that even a small trigger like boredom can cause someone to hit rock bottom mentally?
I kind of feel like it's the other way around. One of the symptoms, one of the key symptomatology for depression is anhedonia, loss of interest in most of the things that used to bring pleasure to you, even lack of interest in sex, loss of appetite. People who are depressed barely have appetite for food. People who are depressed barely engage in what used to be exciting to them. They get social withdrawal. They get bored. So those are kind of like signs to tell you there's something brewing, there's something going on. But even boredom maybe per se, maybe a trigger, maybe a precipitating factor for one to get an episode of like depression. If you persistently expose yourself to things that are less pleasurable to you, or things that impact you negatively, then there can be potential triggers to you getting a depressive episode. But before I forget, from the previous topic we're talking about why is it hard for most of the doctors to open up, or why patients really find it hard or resent the diagnosis, is one, unlike other illnesses that present with medical evidence that, for example, I can do a CT scan, I can do an X-ray of the chest, I can do MRI of the brain, I can do lab tests, I can take a blood sample, urine sample, a stool sample, and then I can find, or can evidently give you a diagnosis and tell you, you know what, this is what we found in the sample, or this is what the X-ray is showing. Mental illnesses, it's more of a subjective diagnosis to be given. You're going to sit with a psychiatry. They will tell you that based on the assessment, or based on the story that you've told me collectively with your family. And the questionnaire, there is a paper I can give you to fill that will let me know of how your inner self is. This is what I found. Now, when you tell patients that, how they will go doctor shopping, they will go to another doctor, they will go do MRIs of the brain. There's a patient I received in Aga Khan, Nairobi, when I was still working there. He was from Rwanda. He traveled from Rwanda to come to Nairobi, Kenya.
One second, fifth opinion.
To get like, I think it was the 10th or something. And the brother had schizophrenia. This man, he had progressed to a terrible phase. He was hearing voices, seeing people they could not see. So to them, they're like, no, there's something going on. They did images of the brain. They did chest x-rays. They did what? And when they came to the office, just from looking at them with my psychiatrist I was working with.
Just by looking at him,
I could tell this man has schizophrenia. As simple as that. But then when you reflect on what they've been told, they're like, we've been told that over 8 times.
Doctor, right there is where I want to pose the next question. For the benefit of our listeners and viewers, what are the common misconceptions?
Yeah.
around hormonal imbalance and mental health that you have encountered in professional circles?
So hormonal imbalances, it's
The misconceptions, the myth that we need to demystify here and now.
Yeah. So most people think they tend to misinterpret the outer features that we see. Okay? For example, if a woman is having mood swings, they will say, "Hey, that girl is moody. All the time she's moody. So she has a terrible persona." So most of the misconceptions people think are more to do with.
You talked about church, faith,
Bandogan. It's a common thing, and also people think something to do with substance abuse.
Yeah.
If a person who drinks maybe 1 or 2 beers, maybe smoke maybe once in a while, maybe a passive smoker, or you're a chain smoker. I can't quantify, but maybe someone smokes like every after 2 weeks, or maybe drinks alcohol, maybe 1 bottle, maybe a weekend, or maybe Christmas. Anytime you get an episode of a mental illness, they will say that weed he smokes is the reason.
Is there a connection? Is there a connection?
There is a connection.
Between substance abuse and hormone imbalance leading to mental health challenges?
There is a connection between substance abuse and mental illness, because even substance abuse is a mental illness. If there is a substance abuse disorder, if you're abusing this substance to the point that you no longer want to work, it has even spoiled your relationship with family, relationship with people, then that substance becomes a problem. We've seen people that drink alcohol to the point that they lose their job, they lose families, and now they're alone. That's when we say there is alcohol use disorder. It is a mental illness. But this occasional 1 or 2 beers, taking a joint, maybe 1 or 6 months.
You seem to talk about a joint like it's a sweet, like it's eclairs or some chocolate.
It isn't.
You're so casual about it. Like it's a biscuit. A joint, 1 joint.
I want young people to listen in and follow the conversation.
Okay.
It's anytime someone
You're drawing them in.
Yes. Unfortunately, if that young person gets hit by a mental illness, the first thing they will say, njaga janywa. Oba obomwego yatandika.
That's stigma.
It is a lot of stigma. So that's another myth.
Drawing conclusions without basis that everybody has a mental health issue, has abused a substance.
Exactly. Each time we see people on the streets, the first thing, there's always that story behind it. They always build in the community that man was smart. He used to be smart, even invented a bulb. Or he's the one who used to he had to wire hospital things. Oh, that guy was so smart in class. But when he started abusing these drugs, and then he's on the streets. No. Most of these children, or most of these people, were just unfortunate. They were hit by schizophrenia.
Oh dear.
And once you have schizophrenia, usually the journey is just, the prognosis is not okay. The recovery period is really hard.
Right there is where we're going to put a full stop, because we want to make an accurate balance between science, which is here to give us facts, and true information, and then someone who has lived and walked and breathed this journey, who we are glad to have as a success story, because in her book, she clearly says, I am not bipolar, and this book is a journey of hope, healing, and restoration. We believe that Angela has been restored and is healed. Angela, I'll just read directly from your book, because the opener in the books, not in the like at the back of the book, you talk about you mastered the art of covering up pain. And my first thought was like, this is a person who had the biggest platform. You are working in a media house, full-blown professional journalist with opportunities to share in whatever manner, secretive, open, therapeutically, to get through your journey. Why did you hide?
I think I was not comfortable to share many things at the time. I remember, the person I would share a lot with, that was a big sister of mine who is no longer here, but I would never, as I was, how do I put it? When people meet me, they are not sure who I am. Sometimes I'm like an extrovert, and yet I have an element of being an introvert. I felt if I shared about my struggles, I would be labeled and I would not have friends. And so for me, being a people pleaser was a journey I walked, and it was very tough. And there are so many things that I valued then. You know, when you are younger, there are so many things you're so conscious of. My friends should like me, people around me, my extended family, they should like me. But then I got to a place where I had, actually the breakdown was like, I snapped. I just couldn't take it anymore. The mask fell off. I had to deal with it.
You didn't put it off, the mask fell off.
It fell off.
Doctor, is that a common occurrence? Most people don't choose. They just hit rock bottom and they have no choice.
Yeah, it is, because
Let Angela please.
coalitions never send like an alert, we are coming on Monday or Tuesday. They just
So when it fell off, of course I didn't have control, because my body, I remember at that time I wasn't even sleeping enough. So I didn't have control, my brain had to rest. And so all this, the rapid speech, I'm talking about things which have hurt me in the past and all that, it all came piling on me, and I was just talking anyway, you know. And what I can say is that most mental illnesses, if you dwell deeper, it is all rooted in pain.
Oh.
Yes, it's all rooted in pain. You are dealing with a lot of things. Some are packages from your childhood and then also into your adulthood. And the truth is, as Africans, we are told to shut up, because you are told a good girl shuts up.
And we are strong black women.
Yeah, we are strong. Black don't crack.
Black don't crack. Both men and women, actually.
Yes. So now you are.
So are you saying that those conversations, that wiring should be disbanded so that we have a fresh narrative? Kindly speak to the media and the people out there, especially that everybody is now a journalist, because as long as you have a phone and data, what
social handle?
Yeah, the social handle, doctor, he said he's a Twitter doctor or a Twitter influencer. What did you say?
I'm just a doctor using Twitter.
No, there's something else he said.
He said Twitter famous.
He said he's Twitter famous. So everybody, while you needed to be certified and write so many columns in that space to be recognized, now everybody is social media famous. Please speak to us about effectively communicating about mental health.
I think one of the ways we can have the media effectively communicate about mental health, it's one of these platforms, what you've just done right here.
Okay.
Yes, because now we are getting it out from under the carpet, right? Talk about the issues. But also another issue, the media should stop trivializing.
Trivializing.
Yes, the mental health.
Please throw more light on that.
And I will explain. Like if a woman, I see that a lot, I will not mention the media houses because I have friends there. So anyway.
You don't have to name names, but that's a very important point.
Example. Yes, I'm giving an example. So a woman is got, police has arrested her. Police is putting her in. Why? She has killed her child. But before you even lock up that woman, has our police been also sensitized? Because also us as media, how you're going to cover that story. Police has to be also equipped. Do they know that this person actually will need to first get a medical check? Let them be assessed first. You might be putting her in the cell, and probably she did that and she was just not all there. I'm talking to people and they tell me, there's one person I talked to, I'm giving another example. And she told me, Angela, she actually sent me a message on social media, Facebook, telling me I want to take my life. You know, and I had to fix her, schedule her for a session quickly the following day. And then we talked and she was open and she told me, Angela, by the way, I've been looking at my children and I'm saying, but why don't I kill them and I end it all? So at least the first step of safety that she took her children away and put them with her mom. That is the first step of safety. But the problem is you cannot be effective in the workplace if your personal life is in a mess. Because she has a lot of personal baggage that she's dealing with. Even men, because I'm glad he's here and he's a man, even men who are promiscuous, men who are abusing substance, they are dealing with pain. But how do you mask it? Party all night. If you're going to bar hop all night and with your friends, you are looking cool. But I'm telling you, if you engage that person one-on-one, they are crashing.
Thank you, Angela. We appreciate those real life cases of what is going wrong, but especially my take home is what can be done right. You were in media, you were a victim of trivialized or lack of safe space. We are blessed to have you here as a success story. You found your way around it with the grace of God, and you've given us some pointers. You've given a very important point on trivializing mental health, where luckily enough, Dr. Chiza talked about misconceptions, like everything that looks, quacks, walks like a duck is not necessarily a duck, especially in mental health. So our dear listeners and viewers, I hope you're empowered from understanding the chemical nature of our bodies to the real life effects of trivializing things that people are going through. We have Angela, luckily, who's still here to tell her story. We have a young doctor here, Dr. Chiza, who is helping, even at a young age that I don't want to name because he said he's Twitter famous. We don't want DMs. But you mentioned in your intro about an organization that you founded. I don't know what it's about, but if you can tell us what that organization does, in light of this conversation, you seem to say you're creating awareness around sexual health and you're on your way to become a gynecologist soon. So is there a connection between this conversation, important conversation, and the work you've started?
Yes. Just to re-echo, my organization is called Usawa Health Initiative Uganda. And basically what we do is it's more of a collective of young doctors who are very ambitious, and that
I can tell.
Yeah, doctors who.
You said vasectomy a day.
World Vasectomy.
World Vasectomy Day is another organization.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're going to get questions about that.
Yeah, I already have questions. I put up tweets about vasectomy.
Okay.
It's a conversation ongoing. But back to Usawa Health Initiative. So we use our platforms and the knowledge that we have to help out young people, to make it easy for them to be understandable. Some of the medical things to become more relatable with and more understandable.
General medical health.
General medical health. But we have more focus on sexual and reproductive health and rights. So things like HIV, there is a lot that is misunderstood in HIV. There is a lot that is misunderstood in cervical cancer. There is a lot that is misunderstood in infertility. So we use the platforms that we have and the knowledge that we have to create more awareness about this. Now, picturing hormonal imbalance that we have as a topic today, you realize that there is a lot that is misunderstood. There is a huge gap knowledge. And who needs to fill it? It's us, the doctors, because we are trained to do that. But you look at the older generation of doctors is more limited to practice. You can only access them if you pay consultation fee. But now for us, we make it a bit more accessible and easy for you. We'll go do outreaches, we'll set up a Twitter space, we'll use all the available platforms that we have to try and send out as much information as possible. We also use our platforms as tools for advocacy, to try and push for policies that protect and at the same time safeguard women that experience some of the key issues that we have. That's even men, the issues that they experience. Men. Yeah. So it's very much important. For example, if you look at the issue of HPV vaccination, which is a virus that causes cervical cancer in women and then penile cancer in men. But who moves the virus around? It's the two. It's both men and women. So why not vaccinate boys and girls? Why only vaccinate girls? So we use these platforms to stir up conversations and at the same time, do positional papers to try and push for better policies, better guidelines that we feel on our end, definitely from consulting the population, that will create a very good level ground for both men and women to function properly. The instance of hormonal imbalance, you look at jobs that are male dominated, especially STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Most of those key areas are dominated by men. And if you find a lady has an opportunity to fit in and she experiences these fluctuations on a daily, weekly basis, and she has to execute her assessments or what she's supposed to do at the same level as men, you realize that there'll be a huge difference. If a lady is menstruating, she can't function
But when
her
she's
full
ovulating,
level.
she overperforms.
Exactly.
So where are we focusing on the downside? Is the glass half full
Yeah.
or half empty?
But the man is constant.
Okay.
Year in, year out.
Maybe
That
on
man,
my good days I'm doing double, so that on my bad days I've already paid in advance.
and if you do double, it feels different.
The jury is still out there, but quickly time is going, and
Yeah.
I think our audience, which is mainly made of young adults, will really appreciate from your wealth of wisdom. We don't discuss your age here again because we don't want people DMing you outside professional circles, but you're quite young. I don't know if I can say Gen Z or millennial respectfully, just refer to a generational issue, because what I want to ask candidly to you, when I read your bio and work around Twitter famous, that status, I was wowed because you proudly say your age and what you have achieved at such a young age. Sadly, that's not the story for many of your contemporaries.
Yeah.
There seems to be an indisputable understanding that as the generations come by, they are less able to withstand the things like stress, like to think, like to work. When you go into the dating space, they say the boys are lazy, the men are not standing up. But what is common and cuts across is the understanding that your generation compared to the ones before has less spine. In the face of hormones and hormonal dynamics, fight or flight, what is happening? Why do they have more flight than fight?
The reason why, when you compare,
If you agree.
I do agree. The reason why you look at the generation that we have today and how things used to be in the past is there's a lot of development that has gone on from, when you look at how it used to be maybe 30, 40 years ago and how it is today, it's a bit different. That men used to be judged by their physical appearance. If this is tall, energetic, has a big chest, that is a full man. And even other men used to strive to be seen as the brave ones, to be seen as the protectors. And what we're having today is we're having men who have been raised in kind of like a softer era. We have been raised in a generation of technology. Things can be accessed at your disposal. People work from home. They don't have to go to town.
And
they are creatives.
Which can mean anything. The art of doing nothing.
Exactly. So you see, each time things come at your comfort, it comes at a cost. That you see,
so we are paying the price for comfort.
Exactly. Every time you live a sedentary lifestyle, a lot of things go wrong in your body. So that's why we see more obesity cases these days than how it used to be back then. Because if you sit home, food finds you at your disposal. You don't even have to move a lot. So such things will just enable a weak stature. You get obese. Even your bones.
So what advice then do you have for employers? Because we are discussing the side effects as employers that we see when this young man shows up with a stellar CV like yours from all these stellar institutions.
Yeah.
But when they are in perpetual flight mode.
Now, I kind of feel like we are more smarter than the older generation.
Is that okay?
If you look at the level of innovations that we have today, if you look at the rate at which we accomplish our assignments and tasks, if you look at the level of knowledge, we have artificial intelligence now at our disposal. It just makes us, iron sharpens iron, as the Bible says, that the more advancement in technology that we get, even us as individuals or as humans, we get sharper. So yeah, we just have to, try to work on the healthy part of our bodies, get more engaged in exercises, be more mindful, because these days we have lots of mental illnesses. Because I said, each time you're comfortable, there's lots of things that are
going on in your body internally. Time is running out fast. I had you on the generational things that are happening. I'll go back to Angela, who has proudly declared she's a mother of 5 girls and a son. And because this conversation is not targeting male or female, from the parenting angle, and given your own experience, because what we did not confirm, and we're not at liberty to assume that if this was a congenital, meaning something you were born with, predisposed either from your judges or your relatives, or it's something that came from environmental as you grew older and worked, and we don't know, and we don't have to go there. Because, like you said, trying to understand the why sometimes is counterproductive. What conversations are you having with your children? What parenting style are you adopting? How are you empowering both the girls and the boys?
We talk about things, we speak openly. I talk to them. So I don't pretend. And I also use the opportunity because I love praying as well. I'm a woman of faith. So we pray about stuff. And during that time when we pray, especially when we are together, when they're unhappy about something, they will say it. So it's like their opportunity to talk about what they're also not happy about. And maybe just also to respond to what he said about the younger generation, why there is a lot of, complacency. For me, I think it's also partly, sometimes as parents, it's also a challenge being absent. You are parenting, but you're absent. And sometimes some parents have misplaced priorities, thinking if I have the money, I give you the money, but then I'm not giving you me. You get what I'm saying? So that brings a gap, and children, when you're not parented, they'll have a lot of struggle mentally,
irrespective where they have all the money.
Yeah, you can have the money because there's a young man, he's a friend to my nephew. His mom is well placed, has a lot of money. Sadly, the dad passed away. So if it's anything material he has, this is a young man who can ask for a small thing and mommy can send 900,000 just like that to the young man. So his peers were like, wow, you are lucky, because their parents
on the face of things.
Yes. But he said, I wish you people knew that in that home, I'm there by myself. A big sister who is away is abroad. So the only people he has for company are the maid and the bodyguard.
So going back to the old traditions of real parenting, not proxy, not material.
No. As parents, we have to review how we are parenting
our children.
Yes, we need to hear our children. We need to see them. They are not invisible. We need to listen to our children, but we must parent because many parents are even afraid to spank a child. But it is okay to spank. The child won't die.
Thank you. Yes. Listeners and viewers, the conversation, the fat talk today is about hormonal imbalance in the workplace. But like we have heard the authority from the scientific side, that's Dr. Chiza Blair, and Angela, a person who has walked and breathed and walked onto the other side of mental health. It's an all-cutting issue. It knows no gender, it knows no financial level or intellect, or it's a conversation that affects all of us. And we want to encourage you as Fidelis Leadership Institute. We take leadership on many fronts, but for us to be able to give you a holistic approach to life, wherever you are placed to work and lead, in the workplace or wherever, we want you to have the best, because like Angela mentioned, she was a performing employee on paper, probably a little bit famous because of her work. I know she's more famous now, but I know she was, in her days, pre-social media days, she was a household name, but she was suffering. We want you to be whole on the inside out, and we invite you to continue this conversation with the Twitter famous doctor, Dr. Blair, and Angela through her work. And please own it. Own it. And let's have the conversation so that we create a critical mass of healthy, available, and teachable people. Our hour is fast spent. We'll take a minute to give our parting shots. I wish we had more time. And we'll definitely come back to talk about vasectomy a day.
Surely, I'll be happy to talk about it.
Yes, you can count on us because that organization.
It's very interesting.
Yes, and then Angela, we will come back to you. I hope we can visit and get some testimonials beyond this 1 hour and share live examples of what a healed person can look like and what the role they can do. So your parting shots, Dr. Chiza.
So our dear listeners, it's been a very interesting time to share knowledge with you guys. I thank the team. I thank Smart TV. I thank Fidelity Leadership Institute for this wonderful opportunity, and I urge them to please continue with such avenues where young people and even older people can learn. My parting shots will be: we need to be very keen to understand the changes that go on in our bodies. Male and females, it's very important. and we also need to adopt a habit of health seeking. In Africa, we've been raised in an era where we only go to hospitals when we are sick. Very sick, actually. Men only go to hospital when they have almost 30% of life left in them, which is a very bad thing. So we need to learn on how to adopt the habit of taking on wellness checks, the habit of opening up when it comes to mental illnesses. Don't let it first hit you rock bottom. If you feel like there is a lot that is not going on right, your appetite is on the lower end, you no longer want to talk to people, you feel like you don't fit in well, please reach out to mental health experts, have a conversation before you cross over to the deeper end. But with those few words, allow me to thank my fellow panelists and wish you a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, Dr. Chiza. Dr. Blair, Twitter famous. Angela, your parting shot.
My parting shots, one, I want to talk to whoever wants to take their life, and I want to use Jeremiah 29:11. It says, "For I alone have plans to prosper you, plans not to harm you, but to prosper you and to give you a future, a hope." So this message is to help you understand that you have purpose. So don't take your life, reach out, get help. And people who are already on their recovery journeys, a shout out to you, but please don't sit on your story, share your story. By sharing your story, you're saving very many lives without knowing. Thank you so much for this time. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Angela. And thank you, dear listeners, for tuning in faithfully every Thursday to our Fat Talks. This has been one of the insightful ones that is going to get our brains raging for a while to see how we can do better. A good starting point would be understanding from a person who has lived and breathed. Angela's book, Breaking Free, is available wherever books are sold, or she'll tell us more about it in her page. Uganda Bookshop specifically, and on Amazon. So
Jumia Kenya.
Jumia Kenya. Yeah, thank you. And we hope to keep the conversation running outside the TV time. Keep it live. And if you have any need for space, safety to discuss mental health, hormonal imbalance, even if you're just suspecting that, based on those examples, I'm a good candidate, please reach out to us. We'll link you up with the right people and make sure that we save one life at a time and impact through our Leadership Institute. Thank you so much. You've been a great audience, and we wish you a good weekend. From the Fidelis team and our guests, have a great evening.